Ready? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, August 28th, 2023 meeting of the Otero County Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order and have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Markworth?
Here.
Commissioner Mattingly?
Here.
Commissioner Barella?
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, we're here to discuss the future of an Otero County ditch crew. Do you want to take this over, Commissioner, since you call it?
Sure. You know, in the past meetings, what was that, budget time, we brought this in to look at it. RB came up with a good point. If we were going to try to get this and figure out how to pay for this, we could work on this tax increase deal. It would be time to talk about it, a way for it to come in. So at that point, I will let Tom and Matt are both here. We'll let them kind of give a little briefing on it.
Okay, so we'll go back to what we had requested during the original budget hearing. It roughly was 1.5 million to get this part of a crew started, and that's with all new equipment and the personnel to do so. And you've asked the both of us what we had for equipment available right now if we decided not to try and buy everything. So at this point in time, I say I have a spare blade, but right now it's working up on 16 because one of my mainline blades is down. Spare 5-yard dump truck, again, it's not running right now, but if I lose one of my main lines, it's up and running. Spare loader, again, provided I don't have any breakdowns. I do have a Bobcat skid steer that 75 to 80% of the time is probably available for this project. We use it in key situations occasionally. We have the Angle 6 dozer, which is a bigger machine, and it would work on some of the larger ditches that we work on.
I don't think you should put anything in here you're not committed to being gone with for a long period of time, because if this goes through and starts,
Exactly.
it'll be a 40-hour-a-week job
Yep.
for years.
Yep.
So,
Which basically wipes out that entire list.
and I still feel the D6 dozer is too big of a piece of equipment for.
For 80% of what you and I have looked at in the past year and a half, correct.
So Matt, what do you got in your?
I have a John Deere 450 that would be available part of the year. The other part is up at the slash pit. Loader backhoe, same thing. It's up at the slash pit, so half the time frame it wouldn't be available. D7 is too big, and I have a wood chipper that we use up the slash pit as well.
The 450, is that equivalent to
Like a D2,
four?
D3.
or 3?
It's a little bit smaller than a 4. Now, the problem with that John Deere, and I'm quite familiar with this machine because I ran it for Paul when we bought it. It's a used machine. If we start using it every day, it's going to have issues.
The problem with the too small a machine, you're going to get up there and you're going to overwork it and you'll break it right off the bat.
Well, for the ditches we're talking about, it's about the right size. But the vintage of it, I want to say it was early 90s,
Yes.
early 90s, late 80s. I mean, it's an older machine.
But we could still, everything you have on this list here is going out and buying it brand new, right?
On that first half of the list that I gave you,
Yes.
correct.
So we could go to some of these auctions and like the dump trucks and stuff like that, like we used to, and go back from 150,000 or 75,000 a dump truck back down to 10,000 or so at those
So
auctions.
I went to the state auction last week, and they have changed how they do it. Usually they let the public entities go in first, and then the hardship counties. They've reversed that, now they're letting the hardship counties go in. I specifically went up there for one dump truck, because I knew it was up there, and it sold before we got there. We came back with nothing,
What did it sell for, do you know?
18,000. You know, the 4 10-yarders that I've picked up from the state auction, each one of those was between 23 and 26,000. So, yeah, we get some good deals when we can, you know.
So what was, I know in the past, there used to be a lot of green equipment out there in the yard from the Army or from the Air Force. How do we go about?
So I just picked up a 10-yarder Freightliner from Dermo, and I'm still buying from Dermo. We paid $20,000 for that dump truck, and again, it's got some issues that we're working on to get taken care of now. Smaller bulldozers like the one we picked up for emergency services, you almost never see them because they come up and they're gone before you get a chance to get them. The loaders, you can pick a loader up all the time. A Gannon tractor, not so much. Backhoe, I can find backhoes usually fairly cheap.
So we can knock some of this number down by trying to pick up some,
Correct.
to get started, to get established.
Mhm.
So the dump trucks, I'm saying that,
The equipment side of it doesn't scare me near as much as some of the logistical side of this. And it's some of the issues we've run into, especially like with Alamo Street and even out on Becky Lane. You know, we've got a beautiful ditch we had just dug out there, and you get to the last third of it, and it's got a 1-foot hump in the middle of that ditch where the gas line is. That's one utility on one ditch. Alamo Street, we just ended up redesigning that complete job. It was supposed to have been finished now, and we're just starting breaking next week because of utilities and trying to pull ditches on the side of it.
when those utilities, that's a utility problem you're talking about on Becky out there, right?
Yes.
We just need to contact the utility companies and get them to lower them.
No, it doesn't always work that way, because RV and I, how long did we fight on Riata on that last bridge?
I don't know whatever happened with that, to be
Yeah.
honest. I don't.
I mean, it ended up costing the county 200,000 extra? Approximately 200,000 extra to get utilities lowered, because we don't have an agreement with these utility companies.
Well, then that needs to be addressed to get in. Right now, that's not even in the standard height, because didn't you say that you scraped the top of it or got on in it?
On some of it, but some of these utilities, you have a 4-foot minimum cover, and if they're already sitting at 4 foot and you're taking 18 inches off, they're not allowing you to do that. Because that's what happened here on Alamo Street. The water line is sitting right at 4 foot, and it's calling for an 18-inch cut for a swell or a culvert to go in, a 24-inch culvert, and the water department, has had to renegotiate some items to get it done. And then we run into the areas that we don't have easement, and you and I have discussed this. We've got neighbor 1, 2, and 3 that want this. Neighbor 4 says no, and we don't have easement. We've got no way to force it. So now you've got 3 driveways with a ditch going on to one without.
So explain to me, if there's a county easement there for us to run this ditch, whether that person needs it or not, how are you gonna create the drainage if this person doesn't want you driving through his driveway or cutting that driveway, but you have to get the water out? Legally, we have the right to do that.
On some of these, we do. On some of them, we don't have any easement other than prescribed easement.
We have to use probably eminent domain and compensate them for it. So we'll have to be paying for these little strips of land and going through the process of getting it declared, that we can take it under eminent domain.
2 years ago, I had to get the sheriff's department out into La Luz. Gentleman that had called complaining about water running on his property, we went and pulled all the ditches. As soon as we decided that we were gonna pull his yard, he's out there throwing rocks at the grader and the crew.
Do we have an agreement with any of the utility companies?
No.
I don't believe so, no.
Is that hard to get, or?
I don't know.
I know Michael Escherman had started a little bit on it, looking into it, and then it, never went to fruition.
Yeah. Would that make it easier, I'm assuming?
On some of it, but there again, if we're gonna dig a ditch, and then we gotta wait for utility companies to get in there and move.
The problem nowadays is most of the utility companies, except for like the gas company and stuff, they don't have construction crews anymore.
No.
So, 20 years ago when Ma Bell and all them had, they would do all their own construction and everything. So, I can see where the utility companies will fight you on that, because that's
Mhm.
I think we could probably push them on it, because we have the public interest is, was what we're working for in the protection of property. But it's not gonna come for free. Even if we can force them to do it, we're gonna have to provide some compensation for moving it.
Who sets that compensation? How much, I mean,
Their rates are about 125 an hour. We just, like I said, that one fiber optic line we had to move out on Riata was roughly $200,000 to just move that one line.
why is it so hard when you're trying to do something good?
None of it's simple, and we've addressed it before, but we're dealing with 60 years of no planning or coordination. And I did a calculation, there's 2,400 subdivision plats on our database, so some of them are probably for the same subdivision. So I would say more easy estimate is that we probably have 1,500 subdivisions in the county, and I'd say easily 60% to 70% of them were approved when they shouldn't have been approved, and have no plan. They don't have proper roads. There's no plans for drainage management, and it's a mess. And it's not an easy fix. And as soon as we start doing it in one area, we're going to get calls to do it in another area. We did have a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers today from 2 to 3, and our grant writer Pablo is going to send them a letter of intent. And essentially, we've started the process of, we've said we need help and we have problems, and they're going to start working with us. And there was some funding that might work for some projects. We discussed it for Dog Canyon and Bulls Acres today, and they may not qualify because it has to be an underserved area. And believe it or not, Bulls Acres doesn't qualify, and it's because the golf course is in the same little grouping that they've put it in, and so the golf course lifts it out of being an underserved area that would qualify it. But there may be a workaround on that, so that's something they're going to look at. Another thing to consider is Section 4-50 of the New Mexico statutes addresses counties and the issue of flooding. We can get a flood manager appointed. It would be appointed by the governor, so,
Don't we
that
have
goes-
one of those?
What's that?
Don't we have a flood manager?
I don't, not under that statute.
Not underneath that statute. It
And-
becomes a flood commission.
And with that becomes a whole nother set of options. There is an option to levy a flood tax on people in areas that are flooding. So it would be raise their property taxes a certain amount to pay for dealing with whatever flood issues exist and the flood commission sees.
Will the work, the Corps, I mean, that would be great if they could jump on board, but that would be probably 10 years before anything could implement off of that, and we need help now.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
Yeah.
And maybe it would be 5 years, but it would be a whole engineering deal and trying to figure it out, but, which would be great, but the people the residents of Otero County right now, and they're in all three districts, it's not just my district, the one that I'm crying about the most, but they need help now. This has been something that's been neglected for
60 years.
yes, but even the maintenance that supposedly that the county is supposed to be doing has been neglected. Tom does do some whenever he has a chance when he's not trying to get the roads back up, but there's only so much that he can do, and that's why I was trying to put together, find a way to get a crew and that's their job, to try to help all the people that's not in the city, that's in the county outside the city limits, so.
I've been looking at budgets today. Chavez County pays double for the road department what we do. We've authorized about 4-something million. They're paying 8 million. They're comparable in population and size. So something to consider and look at what the other counties are allocating in their budgets to be able to deal with flooding and road maintenance.
But to come up with that's almost double on the budget part on what, compared to what we're doing. Again, where did that money come from? I mean, I'm trying to hit it on a cheaper way, which you came up on a deal which would be less impact on people, on the community, but the other fear I have, we can say we voted this in, we ordered all this equipment, have some nice equipment sitting out there, but can we find anybody to operate it?
Yep.
So, how many positions you have empty?
On paper, 7. In reality, 11, because we chopped the high-paying positions to bring the current employees' wages up.
And this is a 7-man crew here.
You know, and that, you and I discussed chip sealing the other day, and that goes right along with, this is the first year since I've taken over, with limitations on crew and the other stuff we're trying to do. We're hitting Labor Day, and I'm not done chip sealing, and I've always been done before Labor Day.
Another option is contracting this work out.
I thought about the contracting, I know that the county can do it for much, well, I say a lot cheaper. The initial setup, it would be, you could issue several contracts. I know that the city of Alamogordo had done several, and it was a lot of money on some of the ditches that they cleaned out. And that was just the main ditches. We have so many little feeder ditches that go into every one of these deals, and even if we clean our ditches, we're gonna have to back up and we're gonna have to get hot and heavy on BLM and stuff like that, that not taking care of their ditches that feed into our ditches. So I mean, right off the bat, the 1.5 million would be, but I think in contracting, you would chew that up very quickly. I mean, we would have to kind of set a couple ditches up and pull some put them out to bid, just to kind of see what they're kind of running at.
That would also require us developing a strategic plan of here are the ditches, and we're gonna go this section, you know, plan it out.
Yes.
I don't think we have that right now.
And who would do that?
I don't know.
I think that was one of the things that the Army Corps was looking at if we went whole project, if I understood that call right. They'd be able to help us identify the urgent needs first.
Yeah, they were, and yeah, that's something that they can bring to the table, but to Gerald's point, it won't happen.
It'll be at least a year.
Yeah,
Yeah. And again, you know, a hot point this year or last year was Bulls Acres. 4 years ago, we were having the same discussion about just south of Tularosa. It all depends on where it hits that year. You know,
Yes.
this year, we have not had any, until this afternoon, any major flooding anywhere.
Well, last year we had out on Scenic, out on Florida and Scenic in that area.
Yeah, but that was more city than it was us.
And we get that every year. I live
Yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
But as far as county-wise goes, you know, Riata got clobbered 3 years ago. You know, last year Bulls Acres did, you know.
But I don't think we have enough time to do complete rebuilds on all these ditches, but if we could just get a crew going to run a blade through them and at least get the debris and the mesquites and greasewood and all that out of it to where it will flow like it's supposed to, make sure culverts are cleaned, would help a bunch.
Well, there again, even on the culverts, 90% of the property owners aren't cleaning their driveway culverts either.
Well, that's
you know.
true.
And, you know, I'm not pointing any fingers, but this is a road I drive every night on my way home. You got Tule Gate Road, that entire north side going west is quote-unquote an irrigation ditch, but there's about this much on each 12-inch culvert or 18-inch culvert that you can see because they've manicured their lawns down in there. You know, we chip sealed that 2 years ago. The south side we were able to pull because that, you know, there's no man's land basically. There's nothing there but mesquite and greasewood. That north side is all manicured lawns. I'm not gonna run a blade through there. Not without some backup.
By backup, you mean a deputy?
Or an attorney,
Or both?
or both. I had to involve him with one this afternoon. We went and looked at a subdivision that's got major drainage issues. I had to bring RB up there, and we're gonna have to do some research to see what we can do. Property owners are not gonna be happy with, you know, the end result, because one way or the other, we're either gonna lose our roads, or they're gonna end up with gravel in their yards.
The one up there.
Yep.
That's a subdivision, just, you know, it's on the side of a mountain. Water is going to come down the mountain. And it's part of what they accepted when they bought the land there.
They don't think about it when they buy it, just when it floods.
Mhm. And that's when we hear about it, so, you know, we got 9 months out of the year where this is out of sight, out of mind.
No, because I get the same thing every winter when we plow snow. There's a lot of them up there that will not let us put snow on their property.
Mhm.
So maybe what we should do right now, each of us have some ditches that need work. I guess it kind of really be up to you two on which ones. You know, we got the one up there off Scenic, in that one subdivision right there in Harold subdivision. We got 2 or 3 up south of town, and I know Amy's probably got some in Tule, correct?
I have plenty of flooding problems in my district, yes.
Maybe we should try to figure out and put some kind of a deal together for a bid on it, just to see. Still gotta have some money to pay if we decide to bid it out and go with it, so either way you do it, whether you buy this and go this route or you bid it out, you still gotta have the money to pay for it.
Yep.
But I wouldn't even know how to estimate on what it would cost, because every one of those ditches is gonna have key factors in it.
And for each of the ditches, we have to look back at the property records, like those two out in Bulls Acres, they were never properly dedicated to the public, so technically they don't fall under county responsibility. But if you look at the flood obligations and sections of statute, they give counties and state entities a lot of leeway to even go on private property in order to protect the general welfare from property damage due to flooding. So it's
Well, but right now, still the property, if we got a good rain tonight and it came down the Canal Street ditch and went across on Smith and the lady in the trailer house that's gonna jump up her deal
But there
18
again-
inches on her trailer house.
But there again, on that one, who do you want to blame? We have ditches that are somewhat pulled back there with no easement, but then you come over to here where it started, where the issue started, again with a bad design. On a bypass, it pushed all the water out 3 culverts instead of 16, aiming it right at that area. We had the same issue all the way from the La Luz light, well, actually from North 54 to Tularosa. They took out 36 culverts, put 13 in.
Didn't they just have a meeting with DOT? People were supposed to be coming to complain about any,
We had a meeting, I want to say it was 5 years ago.
I thought there was one recent.
Commissioner Griffin.
It was a long time ago, after
It
the road
was,
shop.
it was right at, when I took over. We had a meeting with NMDOT, and NMDOT basically told the residents that were getting flooded, sue us. We can't sue them. We cannot sue for residents. And they told the residents of Riata to sue NMDOT.
Didn't anybody sue? Did you?
Nope.
So nothing got fixed?
Nope. And when we had an H&H done, I think Matt's got a copy of it, I've got a copy of it in my office. When Wilson and Company did an H&H for us for the Riata Bridge, it incorporated that entire area, and the state wanted to look at it, and that was the last thing we heard about it. And they said, we'll help you with the BLM, build a retaining pond above the highway. They'll
Fix
help
that when they
us.
fix the guardrail up by the tunnel.
Hmm?
I said they'll fix that when they fix the guardrail up by the tunnel.
I was thinking more of the bypass, but okay.
Yeah. For that.
So can we go ahead and move on what we're gonna do for this meeting? We all understand and we've already talked about the urgency of having a ditch crew. We all want the ditch crew. So I don't see where we're gonna make any kind of an action decision tonight. So I'm not sure. We can talk about it, we can organize it, but that's all we're doing is talking right now. I have submitted grant applications, processes, we can buy equipment with grants, we can do all kinds of things without having to put it on the taxpayers' back. But right now, we're not even able to look at grants or anything because of the way it's on the agenda. So can we move forward with doing something, or can we discuss this later?
If you want baby times. That, out of my league, I don't know how we always ask for grants and stuff, that's always an option. Never quit asking for grants for equipment and money. This is just a preliminary deal in front of tomorrow's meeting to figure out how to vote on what to go with percentage on, or however tomorrow pans out.
Okay, so then what, are we making a decision on how we want to word it tomorrow, or are we making that decision tomorrow?
Well, it would probably be, it would be on the decision for tomorrow, because it would be on which way you decided to go, if you wanted to try to work this option in to that plan tomorrow.
Okay, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting and discuss that tomorrow.
I'm not sure, go ahead.
There's a motion on the floor.
We have any more discussion? You guys have any more?
I do have a little bit more discussion.
Okay.
It won't take but a minute.
Motion denied, what it needs to be said.
Okay, motion denied. So,
Okay, Chair.
excuse me?
Parliamentary procedure.
Anyway, just for example, FYI, for this 1.5 million RB on to do this, what would that take on if it went through the tax increase?
1.5 million for this.
Yes, if you want to try to implement it or try to figure out how to
Pay for it.
get this plan started, maybe you don't do it all this year, maybe it takes 3 years to get enough money to do this, but
I don't have the chart in front of me. I want to say like an 8% was.
Was it attached to your agenda item?
Mhm.
Because you have your book with you. The chart is in there.
So a 16% increase would yield 750,000. An 8% would be 1.5 million, and 3/16, which is the maximum you can do, would be 2.25 million. So the salary increases that were approved during budget were approximately 1.5 million. And that leaves you with 700 and something thousand if you did the full amount.
so even if you did the 1/16%, can you do that, like put it into a funding, the 1/16 into a deal to where you could get it, let it build and have a pool to be able to pull this out of?
You can allocate if you want a specific place for the funding to go to. Right now, it's just written to go to the general fund.
Okay, so the jail and the courthouse was in a hold harmless,
Harmless tax.
yes. Could you do a percentage on this just set aside for road or maintenance?
I'm
Do a line item to.
Yeah, I'm pretty
stash
sure
it
you
in.
can, yes. I need to verify with Julianne, but pretty sure you can.
I'm pretty sure it'd be like a line item, like my chip seal.
Right, that's what I said, a line item where
Yeah.
we just, all the revenue.
My
goes
chip
into it.
seal rolls over year to year because our fiscal year and the state's fiscal year don't line up, so.
That's what I was trying to kind of get at, is if we ask for any of this money off the gross receipts tax to where it would go specifically and not get drug off somewhere else to the drainage ditch cleaning and work.
I think that's possible. Like I said, I'd have to verify. with Julianne.
We can have an
Double
answer
check.
for you by
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay.
And I see why you would do that. But on the flip side, it also restricts it. So there's benefits to having it restricted, and then there's downsides to not being able to access it should you need it for something else.
The drainage issue and the flooding is not ever gonna go away. So I
No.
think it would be a safe issue to have it, that it would be needed every year. And it'll take 5 years at least to ever get caught up on that cycle. And then it would be a revolving door. That's just my thoughts. That's all I had to ask.
And, well, one other item, just to address the elephant in the room, staffing. You gotta figure out how we're gonna do that.
Well, we can still try to advertise and hire. You have positions, they can hire them for that. You can work them until we get a full staff, and then there's ways to get around that. And it would help you too.
Well,
in your
yes, but getting them initially, I mean, we've, had these raises since July 1, and I haven't seen one application come in since July 1. So,
So anyway, that's a thought.
yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody have anything else?
I was just going to answer your question regarding the gross receipts tax.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. If we were to implement a new increment, it would go in a separate line item. It most likely would go into the general fund, but we could just leave it sit there until you told us what you wanted to use that for. So that money would just build up in that line item, and it would be in the general fund because the general fund can allocate money to any other fund. So that's the easiest place to put it in. So then it doesn't matter which fund would need it, or if we wanted to use it in the general fund, it's already there. But if the road department needed it, or detention center or somewhere else, it's easily transferable to other funds if we have it in the general fund to begin with. So yes, we could keep it completely separate and not even touch it until you tell us you want to use it for something.
Could we also make a separate line item that it or a portion of it went to that was for flood mitigation issues?
Sure, if you wanted to do that, we could
specify that in the
we could set up,
ordinance, right?
we could allocate it, a certain percentage of it. We could set up actually a revenue line item that just said flood mitigation. I would still put it in the general fund though, just because it's the easiest place to then use it from or transfer it out to another fund. But we could split it. Part of it would just be that 1/16 or 1/8% or whatever percentage it is of the gross receipts tax. And then we could take a percentage of that and say, I don't know, 25%, 50%, however much of that gross receipts tax increment is going to go for flood mitigation. We could do that and have that money build up until it's to the point where it's usable. So yes, we can allocate any of our gross receipts tax any way that we want to. That was the purpose behind all the de-earmarking that happened in 2019. And it makes things a little bit confusing, but essentially we can put all of our gross receipts tax into the general fund if we wanted to. We don't do that simply because all of these other funds need a portion of that, as far as like the solid waste gets a portion of what used to be the environmental gross receipts tax. The detention center gets the corrections gross receipts tax. The fire protection, well, that one is actually per referendum, so that's a separate one. But healthcare services, they get a portion of the gross receipts tax. The general fund gets a portion. So there's quite a few different funds that previously had received a specific increment. All of that got de-earmarked, except for the fire protection tax, because that's a separate, that was done by referendum. It's a completely separate type of tax. But all the rest of it, if we wanted to put it all in the general fund, we could. But I think Amber Mayhall would be pretty upset if we did that, for one thing. And, the detention center, they need that revenue. So we can allocate it however you want.
I'm just trying to protect it so it doesn't get pulled out of there and sent off for something else.
We could make sure
That's my deal. I'm trying to fight to figure out a way to get this flooding deal taken care of, and I don't like to implement taxes anyway, but this is the only way I see it ever getting done. and it may take 2 to 3 years to get a pot built up enough to start it. We keep limping along like we have been, but at least there's a little pot at the end of the rainbow somewhere, someday, so.
It might be best, actually, if the dedication just says for any general county operating expenses, maybe to leave it all sit in just one line item. Just let it all build up in one line item that specifically says, whatever the ordinance number is, and 1/16% gross receipts tax. Just leave it there, and then once it builds up to a certain point, then you can take all of it if you want to for the flood control. It might be a little simpler for allocation purposes to just do that, knowing that we're not going to use any of that particular allocation unless it's approved by the commission, obviously. And then, it would build up a little bit quicker. You could use it for that, or anything else, if there was additional funds. With the cannabis gross receipts tax that we've been receiving, and that would be part of this, because it's just an overall tax, and any vendor within the city limits or within the county limits would contribute a portion to that. So with all the little dispensaries popping up, that has helped to increase our gross receipts tax over the last year or so.
Okay, that's all I have.
That's it? Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you.